Welcome everyone to Help I Need a Content Strategy, which is essentially your step-by-step guide to creating the right content at the right time, in the right place, for the right people, all for the right reasons. And I think it's that piece at the end that I'll be drilling into a little bit more today. I'm Jackie Scully. I'm Executive Director of Think. For those who know me, I've worked in the business for a number of years and my background is in content and content strategy. For those who don't know me, I spend a lot of time, I was an editor and a writer for a number of years and have since gone on to run the business. So I work with a number of clients. Think has more than 50 clients within its roster. So we are doing lots around content strategy and comms every single day. Now, just a little bit about Think. We essentially, we do work with more than 50 different membership organizations and brands. And what we do is we create meaningful content to help organizations start conversations, cultivate relationships, and change lives. So essentially, that's why you're here today. And hopefully, we're going to go on a good journey together to look at what content strategy is and how it can help your organization. Now, why are we here? Looking at a couple of stats, 60% of organizations, according to the Content Marketing Institute, say that their organization is effective as a result of having documented their content strategy. That compares to only 7% who don't have one and find themselves to be less effective. Also, for those of you who know, we do something called the Remember Research, and what that research shows is what membership organizations and organizations that communicate with key audiences are doing with their comms at the moment. Now, we can tell you from the last survey that only 13% of those organizations had a robust content strategy. And hot off the press, because actually we closed the survey yesterday, we can tell you that that figure has only crept up in the last 2 years by a couple of percentage points. So we know that content strategy is not just something people really want to do, it's something they're not that confident doing at the moment. So something we really want to help improve. Now, before I get cracking, I always like to start with this kind of slide, which is meet your competition. So at 5:37 on Thursday, the 6th of October, this was what was going on the internet and had been published within the same day. So I guess my point here is we're all creating content. Everyone on this Zoom right now is creating content. And there is so much noise. You're competing with everyone from Netflix to the BBC News. So really, what I'm here to do today is to help you, give you a bit of a toolkit from which you can go away and make sure that the content you're creating is content that really means something to your audience, means something to your business, and critically delivers on all those important results. So, and if you ever want fun, Internet Live Statistics is a very good website for a good Friday afternoon. So always worth having a look, seeing what's going on in the world today. So what is content strategy all about? Now, I've deliberately chosen two definitions that I don't particularly love. And the reason I have is because I think some people find content strategy to just be something that's a little bit scary. Could talk of governance, talk of multiple matrices, and all of these things essentially makes content strategy a little bit scary, and therefore it never gets done. Or worse, it sort of gets put in the hard box and everyone sort of runs away from it. But I truly believe that a lot of challenges that organizations face are as a result of not having a content strategy, and therefore putting your sort of big pants on and getting into that discomfort zone is actually a really good way of starting to look at how you're using your resources, and also how you can make those resources work hard for your business. I've actually had a go at my own version, which is hot off the press, and this is what I think it's all about, which is essentially content strategy takes your business purpose and gives your communications purpose. So it's essentially the glue that sticks your business vision to the stuff that you're producing on a day-to-day basis. Without it, you are just a business with an idea and a communications program producing stuff. But the content strategy gives it purpose and makes sure that everyone in your team, everyone in your business, I think we need someone on mute. Everyone in your business understands that what they're doing is actually making a real difference to the business. And we all want to make a big difference after all. Okay, you can see it. There's another lady called Megan Casey who defines it slightly differently. And I've broken it down slightly, which is essentially right people, who are you talking to? Right content, what are you saying? Right product, what are you saying and what are you putting it in? Right place, where are you positioning it? Right time, at what time are you going to be positioning it? and essentially that critical piece for all the right reasons. Well, why are you doing it in the first place? And it's that we're going to keep coming back to today. If you do all of those things, you're going to be either impressing the boss, or you're going to have a smug face if you are the boss. So that's what we want to be achieving today. Right, just before we move on though, I have to stress what it's not all about is going away from today, getting all excited and writing an 80-page document that makes you so super happy that you labor over for 6 months or so, that gets sent round and then actually sits on the server or sits somewhere and sort of gathers dust and never really gets revisited, or worse, gets revisited in a couple of years to find that none of the things you thought actually came about. So please don't go away from today and think you have to create this monster document. Essentially, what I'm going to try and get you to do is think about it as something that can live. It's a living thing that you want people in your organization to really take forward and actually start thinking, what am I creating, and why am I creating it, and what will it do for the business if I do? So how many people, confession time, I'm not going to ask for raising of hands, how many people start the year thinking, right, I need 4 of these, 2 of those, 6 of these, 8 of these, 10 of these, and actually start from the position of how much stuff do I need to create in order to target my audiences, when actually in reality what we all should be talking about a little bit more is, what am I trying to say, who am I trying to say it to, why am I trying to say it, and then thinking, what are the channels that I should be using in order to talk about all of this stuff? So we're all in danger of it. We all start from the point of view of what's in the budget, who have I got on my team, what did I do last year, is it broken, not quite that badly, let's crack on. Whereas actually a content strategy is your time to sort of think to yourselves, God, am I actually doing the right thing in the right way? And have I got the right team in order to deliver that? So let's stop with this, and maybe let's try and see if we can move to this, which is essentially your content strategy is that bit in the middle. It's the brilliant ideas shaped around your business, out of which will fall everything from an e-newsletter to an online article, to a magazine, to a book, to a downloadable guide. All the content types that you can possibly think of that are relevant to your audience specifically start from the point of view of that content strategy piece. So rather than thinking of it as lots of different streams and pools of content that are all sort of slightly interacting but mainly not, think of it as from a point of view of what have I got to say this year that's really going to matter, that's really going to make me sparkle and also make our audiences sparkle and make them feel like they're doing a great job, which is essentially what we want to achieve. So really think about it from the point of view of a sort of hub and spoke model. Start with the ideas and then think about where the content's going to come from. Now, just as I said, a lot of organizations are in this orange space right now. They have the business strategy, the vision, the 5-year view. They've got lots of documentations. They've got their business plan. They know where they're going and they know what they need to deliver in order for an organization to feel and be successful. They then have a channel mix, a lot of things that they're doing, that they've been doing for many years. And what they're missing is that bit in the middle. So it's that bit in the middle that we're going to now go on to unpick. But I must say, before I do, this is not a session where I'm going to be going into the why of you. So this has to be, content strategy starts from the point of view of, we know where we're going as an organization, we know what we need to be delivering, and we know why we exist. Therefore, everything that moves on from that, our content purpose, our content objectives, all of those things fall out of the fact that we know why we're here and we know what we've got to deliver. So if you don't, please, 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 please go away and do that work first. What is it that you do better than anyone else? What would happen if you disappeared tomorrow? What would people want to, what would they miss? What would audiences not be able to get if you didn't exist? Please do that work, and I can share some questions with anyone that hasn't done that work that might give you a little bit of some thinking time. I would also say Simon Sinek is genius. He's written a book called Start With Why. He's also written a book called Find Your Purpose, which is also for individuals as well. So I highly recommend all of that stuff. And he gets you to work through this because his belief is it's not what you do that matters, but why you do it. So please do spend a little bit of time doing that work. And if you're on this call and you're one of people in content and you're like, I don't know what the business really wants to achieve, I don't know where it's going, be prepared to ask those questions because a content strategy has to fall out of knowing the answer. So please make sure you do that step. And then, and only then, are you allowed to move on to the next step, which is the content strategy. Now, everyone who's just noticed that I've said start with why will know that I actually start with who in this wheel. And the reason being is that Simon Sinek's already done the start with why as in your business purpose. So we're getting started with the who. And just to show everybody, it did start its life as a crayon diagram, which is over here, which I drew during the pandemic because I was really interested in trying to explain in simple terms how a content strategy could and should work. So it really did start its life in crayon, and thanks to our wonderful designers, it looks a lot better now. Anyway, we're going to break each of the pillars down as we go through. So let's start in the center of our wheel. Okay, so you've worked out your business purpose. You know where you're going as an organization. The next thing you need to think about is, who are we talking to? Who are the people? What audience segments? How do you group them? Who are the people you need to talk to in order to deliver on those business priorities? And specifically also, some of those audiences might be commercial. So don't neglect, if you're thinking of you've got a 9-10 different groups of audiences that you're thinking about, don't neglect that one of those audiences might also be advertisers and partners if you're trying to monetize things. So you've got to start with who, and also critically, what is it that you need to be telling each of them? Because I think often audiences aren't one size fits all. They need different messages and different touch points and different channels on which to communicate. So you've got to start with the who, and you've got to be quite critical about how you break those down. Now, some people say it can be quite binary. Many people belong in different groups. Don't labor over this too much. I know you could spend 6 months doing lots of persona exercises, but the truth is, it's just about getting a flavor for the people you need to be talking to, so that you make sure that your final output is something that reflects back on those people. And the question I always ask people is, ask yourselves, where is your audience, target and existing, looking if they're not looking at you? Where are they getting their content? Who are your competitors? What are they saying? And critically, are they saying it better than you? Because if they are, maybe that doesn't need to be part of your content strategy. Maybe you can just actually signpost to other things rather than feeling that you have to be all things to all people in your specialist area. So you've worked out who you want to be speaking to, how many of them, who your target people are, who your existing people are. You've asked critical questions of this audience group. The next thing is, why should they listen to you? So this comes back to identifying what it is you can say that is far better than anyone else. And think about it in the context of the resources that you have, the budgets that you have. If you are not set up to be a news desk, don't chase the news. If people come to you because you have the expert advice, go after that, go after analysis, go after things that you know you can contribute and you know people like. Look at what people have signed up to before, look at the high performing content that you have, and really start to think about what is your sweet spot. Because it's only in your if you focus on your sweet spot, you will only grow the attention and the audience. So, which is obviously what we're all here to do. So it's a really, really important critical stage in your content strategy. Now, there are many elements to this. I always love a Venn diagram. So essentially, the trouble of focusing just on what it is you need to say as a business is you end up in the yellow bubble. The trouble with focusing on the audience side is that you end up in the bluish greeny bubble. Now, the issue here is the bluish greeny bubble is all about content. Content's great, but you might just be pushing out loads of content that's making all your audiences happy, but it's not actually doing anything. If you focus too much in the yellow bubble, you're going to be focusing too much on the marketing aspect. So you're going to be telling people lots of stuff, do this thing, renew, join, etc. But you're not actually going to be delivering in anything of huge value. So what we're looking for is that lovely green, that limey green lozenge in the middle, which is your sweet spot, which is the place you go to deliver content marketing, essentially. Content that's valuable, it's high quality, it's really instructive and insightful, but it's backed up by the things you needed to achieve as a business to ensure that it's as effective as possible. Always got to love a Venn diagram. Right, then, and this is permission to write stuff down territory. So not the 82-page document, but something a little bit smaller. Now, this is your content mission statement. I've put it as a kind of multifaceted sentence, but you can do it in lots of different ways, and we can talk about that in a second. But essentially, this is your moment. This is your moment to think, what is my sweet spot? What is, as an organization, as a brand, what is it that we can tell people that maybe other people can't say. So what's your brand? What's your position in that marketplace? What is it that you can say better than anyone else? And essentially, what is the impact of you doing that? Basically, think about your contribution to the sector and the impact that you have, and then start to see if you can shape a question around this. I've done this with a few clients myself, and it's quite a fun exercise, but it's also one that relies on actually involving people in the organization so that everyone feels that they sign up to what is essentially a sentence, but is a lot more than that in terms of what it means for your content program and your priorities. Now, Megan Casey, the lady I mentioned before, she's done it slightly differently in this. If you come at it slightly differently, you might land on a sentence that you all agree with as well if you're struggling. So remind yourself of your business goal. Remind yourself of the content products that you know full well are going to be a cornerstone of the work that you're going to be doing. Remind yourself of the audience and remind yourself of their needs. Write it all down, stick it on post-it notes, whack it on the wall, and then try and knit it together. And then a really great exercise is, can you write it as a strapline? Can you write it as a hashtag? What if it was a manifesto? Play around with it as an organization and really see where you land in terms of defining that content strategy and what it's all about. So you've got your sentence, you've nailed your sweet spot. Everyone's on board with what it is you're trying to do as an organization and what communications you're going to put out that are different and better than anyone else. Then underneath that, we like to look at what we call pillars. You can call them strands or editorial principles, whatever works for your organization. But essentially, what you want underneath that is a bit more of a kind of flesh on the bones in terms of, okay, we've got this great sentence. We're going to be the leading authority. We're going to provide expert analysis. We're going to make sure that our audiences are empowered to do X, Y, Z. But then how does that break down? And anyone who's worked with me will know I like a little bit of alliteration. So think if you can come up with, say, between 4 and 5, maybe 3 if you're smaller, the kind of pillars. Don't go beyond that, otherwise you're going to end up with a massive matrix of lots of different ideas. But try and come up with words or phrases that actually go into a little bit more detail about what it is you want to be talking about. So one of my clients wanted to make sure that they talked about their impact a lot more. So impact became one of their pillars, where they really went into the detail of what they were doing, why they were doing it, what the impact was on the audience, and therefore makes the audience feel like they have that emotional connection. So do really try and sort of think hard about those pillars, and as I say, keep them to a limited number so you don't end up sort of it becomes a little bit sprawling after a while. I worked with a client recently, and we took these pillars that we came up with, and then we brainstormed lots of ideas underneath, and it was a really good way of stress testing whether we felt that those pillars were the right ones or whether there was anything missing that needed to be that kind of additional pillar. So do bear that in mind, but it's a really good way of really stress testing that sentence and then building it out into something a little bit more detailed. And related to this, a lot of organizations I work with, a lot of them have brand guidelines. They have sort of, what to do with the logo. Please don't invert it. Please don't cut it off and whack it somewhere else on a website. But actually, when it comes to the way they speak, the way they sound, the way they want to come across, actually, sometimes that detail is a little bit lacking. So in your content strategy, make sure you're not just looking at why your audience should listen to you, what are the messages you've got to say, but actually look at how you say it and what your voice really is. And again, think a little bit more beyond the words like expert or I don't know, accessible. Try and knit words together, like reassuringly expert, or something that actually digs a little bit deeper into who you are and how you want to sound. Because again, this is part of your personality, and if you can get your content personality right and then project it onto all of those people creating content and representing you, then you're going to be able to have a more cohesive content program that everyone will understand, and a real consistent tone for those audiences. Right. And then obviously the fun part starts, which is once you really thought about what it is you're going to be saying and why, it's about inserting all of those ideas, getting groups of people together across the organization, not just content generators, to think about what is it that you guys can be talking about in the next 12 months, in the next 24 months, depending on your planning cycles. And I think one of the key things to say here is nothing is original. So don't be afraid to go back and look at what you've done in the past that has worked and recycle that brilliance. The truth is, We're all time poor. Many people will have missed it when you did it in the first place, and many people will also have joined and therefore won't have seen it before. So please be aware of the things you can recycle as well as the things you can go on to say. And then also I would say, think like a campaigner, thinking campaigns, not content. Don't think of one piece of content over here, 10 pieces of content in a month over there. Think about the things, the ideas and the themes that matter to you as an organization, and how from there you can create an ongoing drumbeat of content throughout the year, which is after all what we're all about. And when you're doing this, really think about the fact that not all content is made equal. You do not need every single piece of content to be your hero standout piece of content. You need to balance it between what we call hero, help and hub content. Now, hero is the big stuff. I did this presentation just the other day and someone said to me, well, what's hero content? Now, for any of my colleagues on the call, they might find this quite funny as a response, but the truth is it's the award-winning content. It's the stuff that means you're going to win and stand on a stage at your association awards. It's the stuff that requires effort. It's often member or audience related, so it brings out that lived experience. And often it's where you want to be an agent for change. You want to see a problem and see a solution and be able to create content that talks about that solution. So try and go for some hero pillars throughout the year, bearing in mind they are the labor intensive ones. So don't focus too much on that area. Otherwise you might get a little bit stuck, particularly with fewer resources. And then you've got to bolster that with your help content and your hub content. Help content is that practical, useful, really super helpful thought leadership, anything that gets people to learn more. And then on the hub side, it's the evergreen stuff. What do you do seasonally? Does the weather affect what you do? Does, I don't know, seasonal times of year, do they affect sort of what people are thinking about, how they're planning as your audiences? What can you do and recycle and republish year in, year out that gives a really good drumbeat of content? And if it's online, that really long tail of ongoing traffic that means you can continue to get people visiting your site. Right, so back to the wheel. So you've done the yellow bit. You've sorted out your audience strategy. You know who you're talking to, you know why you're talking to them, and you know how that maps back to your business priorities. Then you've looked at your message. What are you trying to say that will make people listen, and why should they listen to you? And from there, you've looked at your content mission statement, you've looked at your pillars, you've sorted out your tone of voice, and you've got a good shape of some ideas. Then it's the what. What next? Okay, so I've got all these ideas. How on earth am I going to take them from idea to actuality? Now, this puts us into the what stage, which is a two-prong stage. And essentially, sort of recycling a little bit of what I said before, it's about finding out how to turn your ideas into content. So creation of content is one thing. And as my amazing content development director says on this quote, which I really love, is no one has time to read your content, so stop creating more of it. So before you start creating more content, really do think about both what you can point to and curate of other people's that you're happy to do so, obviously not sending them over to a massive competitor, but also maybe signposting things that people just do better. And then also what you can repurpose, what you've done before, what you can take from, say, articles over the last 5 years. Can you stitch them together and create a downloadable guide? Can you actually start reutilizing content and putting it out in different ways for different audiences? So you might have done, for example, subscriber or member comms for a number of years, and you can actually dice and slice some of that stuff in order to create some maybe member acquisition or subscriber acquisition content over here that is a downloadable guide for data capture. So really think about what you've got, what works, what's performed well, and also then what content types you can turn it into. And it doesn't have to be one content type, it could be a series of different content types. But essentially, once you've started with the idea, it becomes far easier to work out what to put where. And then just a quick side point, when I talk about content, and I think this is really critical to lots of organizations, particularly where they have separate marketing and comms and publishing departments, is that when I talk about content, I mean, content is any kind of material that can be read, watched online, on television or in print. Essentially, if you're pushing it out to your audiences, whether that's a welcome letter, a renewal series, and you're sending it to the audience, it is content. So do think about this in the round, because what you would hate to do is have sort of a member onboarding process, for example, or a subscriber onboarding process that's quite sort of marketing focused and very much about you, and then miss out the content, which is the reason the person might might be joining in the first place. So make sure that when you're thinking about content, you're thinking about every single touch point that you have with your audiences, because if it's not consistent, if the tone of voice isn't there, and also if you're not celebrating all the good stuff at the points at which it matters, you may lose people along the journey. And it's all about that important customer journey after all. Okay, so you've worked out your who, you've worked out your why, you've worked out what you're going to do, and whether that's going to be a blog or an article or an audio, etc. The next thing you need to do, again, is think about where. And I think I've said on this slide, find a good home for your content and then open the windows. And what I mean by that is, while there is a shift towards a lot of lockdown content for obvious reasons and very important ones, and I know lots of people are working really hard to develop their behind a login, behind a data wall stuff, which is really important, do make sure you have enough, open the windows and let some people in order to make sure you're teasing people. I would say that balance has shifted over the last few years as a result of the pandemic, but do make sure you sort of work out what balance works right for your organization, because locking everything down means that no one knows how great you are. And also if you lock everything down, but then everything isn't that much, then actually you're asking a lot of an audience who may not then come back if what they find when they log in isn't actually, you know, a really great experience. So think a lot about that, what you lock in and what you don't. But yes, my top tip of opening all the windows will wreak havoc with your energy bills. Do make sure you leave some stuff behind, because I think in the days where we just thought it was good to open everything up, and discoverability is obviously really important, there is that important part now with locking things down and obviously being able to monetize it for a number of audiences. So there, as I say, there are two aspects to this. One is what you actually do on your own sites, on your own channels. And I think we're all in danger of spending way too much time on our own stuff because we control it. We control our websites, our print magazines, whatever it is, we control it. So obviously, it's a really important part of your content strategy. It's really important, you know, your tools that you can utilize, but don't forget the amplification. Please, please, please spend good amounts of time thinking about what it is you are doing to get that content out there. Some of your hero content, for example, is perfect for the earned medium because people will want to shout about you. Do a project with 12 of your members, get audience people involved, do a photo shoot, get young people to take over your magazine and do a sort of future leaders edition, whatever it is. That kind of stuff gets you ambassadors, it gets you PR, it gets you amplification. So don't neglect that paid and earned space, because in there lies the answer to kind of getting your message out there and making sure you can either target at the right people or you earn the right to be speaking to the right people. So please, please, please make sure you do a little bit of that. And then we come on to the final rung of the wheel. Now, the reason I think this is really interesting is I often think this is the rung of the wheel that most of us are in danger of starting with when it comes to our content programs year on year. Who have we got? How much have we got? What did we do? Where are we going to go? Oh, let's crack on. And I think for me, it's about this part comes and only comes when you've worked out what it is you need to achieve as an organization. Now, I would say that obviously every organization is different and people will have limited resources. So it could be you go through this process and you come up with a utopia that you can't actually deliver. But what I would say is it gives you the opportunity to prioritize, to work out, well, these are all the things we need to do. What if with our team and our budget, we can only do these things? That's no bad thing. It's just being able to prioritize means that you don't have to have a few people doing a lot of things or a lot of people doing an enormous amount of things. It's about prioritization. So focus on that how, and also don't always look at the people that are creating content in your business. I did a brainstorm with a group of people and we got departments from all over the business to talk about their ideas, their thoughts, the challenges, their experiences talking to members, their experiences on technical helplines. Anything you can draw on in order to create your sweet spot and find out the stories that you should be telling. Bring those people together, because the more they buy into you at this point, the more likely they're going to buy into you at the point at which you knock on the door and say you need 1,500 words from them in the next XYZ. So make sure you do this, you bring people on the journey with you. And I think there was an interesting quote from Joe Pulizzi, who's the godfather of content marketing. He says, you know, the marketing department of tomorrow is going to be more about publishing. It's editors, storytellers, content is key to everything you're doing. And I think we've got lots of people that have a little bit of channel expertise. They know how to get stuff out there, but actually rooted in all of this is the really good, shiny content that makes us all smile at the end of the year. So don't forget that. And then the one biggest part of this, I think, is really important. This comes back to the writing in. What do you do with it? Do you write it as a big document? What do you do? Obviously, you could have a party, and I would hope to be invited to that. But if not, I would suggest every organization that is going on this journey turns all the bits that we've talked about into what we call a content playbook, which is essentially a designed up guide. So you need a designer for this, and to make it look snazzy and whizzy woo, or you can use something like Canva, which is how I'm presenting, and try and do it yourself. But essentially it's a way of bringing to life all of the things you hopefully will have debated and decided among you in a way that's really fun. I've worked with clients who've stuck posters on the walls. I've worked with other people who've created these little sort of things that go on people's desks or can be posted out to people's homes. It's about turning your content strategy into a living thing that exists on people's desks, that actually, when they wake up, they think about it, maybe after their breakfast and their coffee, but you know what I mean? It's about making sure that people listen to what comes out of this and utilize it in their day-to-day. And you can't be stuck in planning mode all of the time. So you have to sort of let people free to go off and do the things that are going to be useful to them. So if so, make sure and that they have these guiding principles, that they know the direction of travel, and your content playbook is a really good way to do that. And we've done that with a number of organizations, and it has been working really, really well. But also have a party and put sparklers on your muffins, because why wouldn't you? And I guess the final sort of point I would say is, obviously, it's easy for me to say all of this. It's easy for me to say, create all of these statements, create these plans, come up with a process, etc., etc. But the point is, at the end of the day, it will only work. Content strategy only works if it actually delivers in real benefit for your business. So my sort of parting note would be, make sure you measure the right things. And I think there was a great phrase that I put as my top tip here, which is measure what matters, but don't measure out the magic. So make sure you are asking yourself, how is the business doing as a result of this strategy? How is what I'm creating over here impacting what's going over here? Are our audience figures up? Are our audiences leaving? Are our audiences staying? What are they doing? Because if you aren't tracking that and that critically, you're going to get lost in the opens and the likes and the click-throughs and all of those things, which they will have a place, but don't chase vanity metrics over the point of view of, at the end of the day, we're doing this work because we want to make our organizations as great as they can be. But the sort of caveat is, don't measure out the magic. Sometimes you've just got to take a punt. You wake up one day with an idea that you think is going to run, that you think your audiences might like, but you have no idea whether it's going to have any impact at all. Some of those things can often be some of the most high performing pieces of content you will ever create. I worked with a client who basically woke up one day after in the pandemic. The government had said something on a Sunday night. They woke up on a Monday morning. They said, I know the answer. They wrote it out. It was a rustic email, no real design quality to it, plain text, sent it out, most high performing email of the year. And members cited it when they were doing their renewals process, that it was because of that, finding the moment, being agile, spotting it and filling it with content, because that organization knew what it had to say and when it had to say it. So be really ruthless about this process, because it will only pay dividends in the end. And then my sort of final words to you are, this is your commitment time. I'm going to redo the poll when I come off this thing and see whether at the end, to see whether you feel a little bit more positive about your content strategy. But I would just say, get started. Get started. Making it happen is the most important thing you can do. There is no right or wrong. It's just about trying to define something for your organization that means you use your business resources and your time and your budgets really, really effectively. But most importantly, make it fun. Have fun with it. I love content strategies. I love it, and I love talking to people about it. And I think it's a collaborative process. So don't feel that you as a senior leader or you as a content person have to go away into a room and design at a whiteboard. If you do that, you're going to get stuck, and you're going to put it in the hard box, and you're not going to come back to it. We want you to make your content strategy something that sits at the heart of your organization and makes people feel a little bit warm and fuzzy inside. So please do collaborate with people. And I myself and a few of my colleagues, we do We do work with organisations on this. So if you feel either that you really want help with start to finish, or you actually want help with, you know, sort of, you've got lots of the bits and pieces together, but you're not quite sure, do come and speak to me, because there is chances are we can help you, and we just want to help you. So do feel free to come to us if you'd like that. And we do a thing called a 2.5 day rapid rethink for organisations that, as I say, have everything, they just don't know how to knit it together. So do feel free to come and chat about that if you'd like. And yeah, I mean, all I would say is everyone on this call, you're obviously on this call because you want to make your content strategy better. So that makes you awesome in my book. And all I would love, I'm very happy to share this deck. I'm also very happy to answer any questions that are coming up right now, or also after this via email as well. So please do feel free to get in touch with me, and please tell me about your journey. I'm hoping to do more and more in this area. And the more I know about what people are doing and how they're doing it, the better it will be, and the more we can give back to the sector over time. So my contact details are there, and as I say, very happy to share the deck. My email is jackie@thinkpublishing.co.uk, so do follow up with me after that, and you can also find me on Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram.